Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 52. It calls from the deep. In 1960, a reel-to-reel tape belonging to Mr. Christian Duvall was discovered sealed in a glass container on a small island just south of Guam. It was discovered by a team of researchers working for the U.S. Department of Defense, who at the time was scavenging for a new island to test their latest atomic weapon. I was one of 5 people who were allowed to hear its contents, make copies, all of us were sworn to secrecy. However, as the years have crept forward, my tumors show no signs of slowing. I have lost the fear that once held my tongue so tight. For the secrets heard within this tape are of grave importance and of horrifying revelation.
June 13th, 1931. My name is Christian Devol, leading marine biologist at the esteemed Hutzold Oceanographic Institution. I will be joined by Mr. Jonathan Kress, who shall be piloting our vessel, and Mr. Benjamin Learn, famous ocean cartographer and navigator. Our vessel, aptly named the Deep Whale, is quite possibly the first and only vessel of its time able to reach depths exceeding 10,000 feet, as well as being self-sustainable for a period of 3 weeks. To say that we are excited would be an understatement, though we have been sworn to secrecy for the time being. While I find that this is fair, I find it torturous to gaze into the eyes of my sweet Abigail and not tell her the truth of my coming adventure. Alas, my mouth has stayed shut on the matter. From what I've been told from higher-ups, we will be exploring a recently discovered region in the Pacific Ocean known as the Marianas Trench. There have been several attempts to map out the depth of this area using sound, but we shall be the first to do it by exploration. My heart races with excitement and fear just thinking of it. I shall get some sleep, as to be as focused and prepared as I can for our initial descent tomorrow morning. June 14th, 1931. Ah, my sweet Abigail, how I wished you could have seen the beauty that I've gazed upon today. The vibrant and bright colors of the fish swimming in the bright blue water reminded me greatly of your wondrous red hair and blue eyes. But I digress. The initial descent, which was poised to be very seamless, ended up being rather cumbersome due to the agitation of a very hungover Benjamin Learn. Though once we reached around 300 feet, his mood quickly shifted to that of awe. All around us, thousands of fish, of which I have yet to see in any publication, swam and played as our vessel sunk deeper and deeper. Part of me wished we could have stayed at that depth for longer, so that these creatures could be properly documented, of course. However, I know that time is a scarce and precious commodity on this ship, and that sticking to a schedule is of the utmost importance. As I write this, we are currently around 500 feet below the surface. Tomorrow our goal is to reach that of 1,000 feet. After this, we shall descend at roughly 1,000 feet per day to reach our goal of roughly 10,000, at which time we shall do our experiment. June 15th, 1931. My dear Abigail, last night, or what I presume to be night, we heard a strange sound coming from the black abyss below us. It sounded low in pitch, yet at the same time, it sounded that of a crying woman. To say that we were disturbed by this noise would be an understatement, as Learn has been quiet ever since. But we shall not let a measly noise deter us from our task at hand. I reminded the crew of the large sum of money and international recognition that would come from our voyage, and this seemed to have elicited some extra morale from Cress. As we descended further, the once comforting blue of the ocean has been replaced by an impenetrable darkness. A darkness our light could barely shine through. Around 15,000 feet down, our vessel began to make several creaking sounds. I assured the crew that this was merely a product of the ship's hull regulating to the rising pressure, but this did not seem to provide comfort in Mr. Learn, who had begun to show signs of regret for partaking in the voyage. Due to this, Cress and I had come to the conclusion that 1,000 feet per day was too slow, and that if we kept this pace, poor Learn would go mad. So, we intend to shorten our trip by descending 2,000 feet a day instead. This added haste has seemed to live in Learn's spirit a bit, as he has spent less time at his bunk and has joined us for dinner and cards. Knowing that I shall see you sooner has livened my spirits as well, my sweet. For 2 days without you seems that of an eternity. June 16th, 1931. My lovely Abigail, how dreadful of a sleep I have gotten. Once again we were awoken by that damned sound, only this time it seemed to be closer and more dynamic in its range of pitch. Its perplexity is both astonishing and beyond comprehensible horror. How a creature could make a sound so dreadful has my mind racing for answers, each of which has given me increasingly horrifying images. The creaking in the hull has also begun to come more frequently, causing Learn to become increasingly agitated. Around 4,000 feet, he started yelling at Cress and I, saying that we should turn back while our ship is still intact. I tried to assure him that this vessel has been tested thoroughly as to make sure it would be safe for long-term travel, but he didn't heed any of what I said, instead opting to say that we were going beyond the realms of sanity. In order to calm his nerves, Cress brought out a bottle of bootleg whiskey he had snuck aboard the ship, and it seemed to have done the trick, for Lern is now fast asleep, and our voyage is once again peaceful. While I find the mere idea of drinking while on such a groundbreaking expedition to be, morally reprehensible, I may ask to take a swig before bed, as to allow myself to get a full night's rest. June 17th, 1931. Something has changed, my sweet Abigail. I cannot put my finger on what or how, but something sinister has taken hold of this voyage. Last night, while it may have been tempting, I refused to drink. Instead, I told Crest that I would stay up and monitor the descent so that he could have a full night's rest. Oh, how I wish I took that drink now. Roughly an hour after Cress had fallen asleep, I heard that damned sound again. Unlike the previous times, where I had not been in a proper mental state to report what I've heard, this time I was able to jot down exactly what I heard. At this point, the noise was so loud that I could tell it came from several hundred feet in front of us and at around 2,000 feet below. Unlike the previous times where the sound was very dynamic at pitch range, this noise sounded only high-pitched. As soon as I hate to write this, it sounded very familiar to you, my love. In temperance, in tone and pitch, even matching the human rhythm of speech. I have yet to decide what to do with this information. As the lead researcher of the crew, it is up to me to keep my crew informed of any potential dangers at hand. However, the selfish and adventurous side of me wants to keep going, at the very least to finish the sound mapping of the trench floor, and ideally to figure out what has been making these noises. I can hear Lern rustling, so I shall end this recording, so he doesn't learn of my horrible discovery. June 17th, 1931. My love, I do not wish to scare you, but I've started to fear for my safety. Several hours after Lern had woken up, our rather uninteresting conversation about food rationing was interrupted by the screams of Cress. We ran over to his bunk and watched in horror as he seized violently. Remembering our brief yet effective training in first aid, we were able to get him through his seizure alive. When he came to, he barely spoke, and Lern and I chalked this up to potential brain damage from the seizure. However, when we both agreed that it would be best to abandon the voyage and ascend to the surface, Cress lashed out in a fit of rage. He screamed about how it was imperative that we continue the voyage at hand. When pressed as to why our expedition outweighed that of his mental well-being, his response will forever be engraved in my memory. Because the call beckons us. Luckily for us, we are at 8,000 feet now, so we only have one more day's worth of travel to go. It's times like these that I miss you the most, Abigail.
Destiny cannot be undone. Answer the call that beckons you.
June 18th, 1931. I awoke to find I had a strange message recorded on my device. This message makes me fear even further for my well-being. Not because of its contents, though those words make me shudder on their own, but because the voice in which it is recorded does not match my own, although the audio is not clear enough to decipher whose voice is on the recording. When I discovered this message, I promptly asked my crew if any of them had recorded it, to which the obvious answer was no. How can I possibly trust these men if they are willing to breach my trust and privacy by recording that message? June 18th, 1931. Oh my God, to say that a disaster is in the midst would be to downplay the situation at hand. For the last 3 hours or so, Cress has been laughing and mumbling incoherently. As a safety precaution for Learn and I, as well as the well-being of Cress, we decided it would be best to tie him down to his bunk. During this struggle, Cress took his pen and stabbed it straight into Learn's chest, causing Learn to fall over, writhing in pain. Luckily for me, we were just about finished with tying him down, so I was able to finish the job on my own. Once finished, I quickly tended to Learn's wounds and was able to successfully stop the bleeding. Though, without proper medical professionals and equipment, I am not sure how long he can last. Due to this and the recent violent tendencies exhibited by Cress, we had decided to abandon the experiment and descend back to the surface. However, it was to both our horror that our controls have become unresponsive. Whether that is due to engineers miscalculating the pressures of the ocean or some outside interference, it does not matter, for in either case, we are still trapped in this vessel, traveling further and further from salvation. June 18th, 1931, at around 9,500 feet, we heard that blasphemous sound once more, though this time it appeared as if it was coming from mere feet below us. The velocity as the sound traveled was enough to shake our ship, causing a weakened Learn to fall out of his bunk, rendering him unconscious. I am starting to greatly fear for Learn's health, as around 9,000 feet down it had taken a major turn for the worst, and I fear he may never regain consciousness. It seems like eons since I've been able to feel anything except dread and hopelessness. My only hope at this point is that whatever problem has led to the loss in control will somehow come back to life. Though I fear that only by divine intervention this may occur. June 19, 1931. Time unknown. Name Benjamin Learn. Cause of death, stab wound. Rest in peace, my friend. I hear the noise again, and it appears to be right below us. I've decided to go down to the small half-dome viewing area to see what has been making the noise. As I descend the ladder, I could hear Cress's shrieks of laughter. June 19th, 1931. I have seen it. the source of the call, the source of my misery. I peered into its mile-long eye, an eye that has seen the rise and fall of many empires, past, present, and future. It's filling my mind with its knowledge. It told me what I must do. I went upstairs to forever silence the shrieking maniac, but when I reached the main deck, he had already succumbed to death's will. After I finish recording this, I will put this tape in a glass container so as to not damage its contents. May God, whatever it may be, take pity on me for what I am about to do. To my sweet love, I am sorry. I wish it could have ended differently, but I am afraid I have no choice. Humanity must never come to this place again. It is not too late to stop the madness of our curiosity, for some things are better left to secrecy. June 19th, 1931. Jonathan is dead. I am so sorry, John. May God pity us both. June 19th, 1931. The hull has been breached. I will not survive much longer. I'm sealing this tape away in hopes that one day our superiors will know what happened to us and that my love may know my fate. Abigail, please don't be sad. Or at least in death, I will never hear its call again.
This has been tape number 52. It Calls from the Deep by the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. It Calls from the Deep was written by Mr.HeavyRadio and was originally posted on the Creepypasta Wiki. Guest narration and the voice of the unknown entity were by my talented friend, Dr. Torment. Be sure to check out his stellar channel. A link can be found in the show notes. And thanks as always for not only being a super talented narrator and voice actor, but just for being a great person too. Appreciate you, buddy. The voice of the old researcher, executive production, and sound design for this episode was by TJ Hodder, with additional sound design by Sam Hudson. Sam's a good friend of mine and a very talented producer. Contact him today if you need any work done. Music for this episode was provided by CO.AG. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, overlays, and graphic design work was provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you have a story you would like to submit, or a question regarding the show, please contact us at tapesoftrepidation.podcast@gmail.com. Support the show by subscribing and leaving a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcatcher, or like and subscribe on YouTube. And be sure to tell your friends. Word of mouth is extremely helpful to a podcast like this one. And check us out on social media through the link tree in the show notes. We have Facebook,
Instagram, and Discord. And I know I say it all the time, but if you enjoy this podcast and you're not on the Discord, you're definitely missing out. We have a lot of fun over there. It's definitely the best way to interact with other fans of the show, myself, and just keep up with everything going on with the podcast. If you enjoyed Tapes of Trepidation and you'd like to support the show a little more, consider joining the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain access to monthly bonus short story narrations, the weekly behind-the-scenes podcast within the archive, and more. At the $5 tier, there's hours of behind-the-scenes content and lots of great short story narrations, some of which you will definitely never ever hear on the main feed, even as a special treat. So check it out. And at higher tiers, you get even more unique rewards, up to and including exclusive live readings and personalized narrations. So come, join us, and become trapped within the archive, just like my current patrons: Neil Skarupa of Neurotic Voice, Doozer Pin Dan, Ronan Komori, Eric Phones, Patrick Stewart, and Dogs Are Cute 11. Thank you all so very much for the support. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, use with permission, or is available on your Creative Commons share-alike license. The license can be found in the show notes. All rights reserved, unless otherwise stated. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcasted without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Thank you so much for listening.